In the summer of 1799, a simple black rock emerged from Egyptian soil that would change history forever. This wasn't just any stone. It was the key to an entire lost world. For 1,500 years, the magnificent temples of ancient Egypt stood with their stories locked away in mysterious symbols no one could read. The Rosetta Stone changed everything. But here's what historians rarely mention. This celebrated artifact reveals a hidden power struggle that shaped our modern world. Behind the familiar tale of archaeological triumph lies a web of political manipulation, colonial conquest, and a secret message hiding in plain sight. Today, we're decoding the real truth of the Rosetta Stone, the story they never taught you in school. When Napoleon's soldiers discovered a dark granite slab while building fortifications in Egypt, they couldn't have imagined how this seemingly ordinary stone would transform our understanding of human history. But the story we've been told about this remarkable artifact, that it was simply a lucky discovery that helped scholars crack the code of hieroglyphs, barely scratches the surface of its significance. The truth reveals a complex web of political maneuvering and hidden agendas that have shaped our relationship with ancient Egypt ever since. Let's start with what we do know. The Rosetta Stone is a fragment of a larger stone slab weighing about 3/4 of a ton. What makes it extraordinary is that it contains the same message written in 3 different scripts: hieroglyphic at the top, Demotic in the middle, and ancient Greek at the bottom. But here's where the conventional story starts to unravel. The stone wasn't created as a translation tool for future generations. It had a much more politically calculated purpose. The inscription is actually a priestly decree issued on March 27, 1960 BCE, during the reign of Ptolemy V Epiphanes, a ruler of Greek Macedonian descent, not an Egyptian pharaoh as many assume. At this time, Egypt was under Ptolemaic rule, a dynasty established by successors of Alexander the Great, who conquered Egypt in 332 BCE. These Greek-speaking rulers governed Egypt for almost 300 years, until it became part of the Roman Empire. And herein lies our first revelation. The Rosetta Stone represents a calculated political maneuver during a time of intense cultural friction. The young Ptolemy V inherited the throne at just 13 years old, during a period of widespread revolt throughout Egypt. The decree on the stone was crafted after the coronation ceremony in Memphis, the traditional capital of Egypt, though Alexandria had become the economic and political center. Why Memphis? Because the Ptolemaic rulers needed to associate themselves with Egypt's ancient traditions to legitimize their rule. The content of the decree itself reveals a sophisticated propaganda campaign. The Egyptian priests publicly declare their support for this foreign king, listing his supposed good deeds, quelling rebellions, reducing taxes, supporting Egyptian temples, and sponsoring animal cults that were important to Egyptian religious practices. In exchange, the priests received increased financial support, temple funding, and reduced taxation. What we're seeing here is a negotiation of power between 2 influential groups: the Greek Ptolemaic royal house and the Egyptian priestly class. The stone wasn't created for everyday Egyptians. It was a political document meant to be displayed in temples to reinforce the authority of a regime facing serious challenges to its legitimacy. But why 3 scripts? This wasn't for the benefit of future archaeologists. The hieroglyphs were the formal sacred writing of temple inscriptions, increasingly understood only by priests. Demotic was the everyday script used by native Egyptians. Greek was the language of the administration and the ruling class. By using all 3, the decree could communicate its message to all the important power centers in Egyptian society. Perhaps most revealing is that the Rosetta Stone wasn't unique. The decree was meant to be copied and placed in temples throughout Egypt. Archaeological evidence confirms at least 3 other nearly identical copies have been found. These mass-produced propaganda stelae were common during the Ptolemaic period, with similar decrees issued for previous rulers. Now, let's examine how this ancient propaganda tool became a symbol of Western archaeological triumph. The story of the stone's discovery in 1799 by Napoleon's troops is accurate. But what's often downplayed is the colonial context. Napoleon's invasion of Egypt wasn't just a military campaign, It was accompanied by 167 scholars tasked with documenting and collecting Egyptian antiquities. This scientific mission had clear imperialist motives. When the French were defeated by British and Ottoman forces in 1801, the Rosetta Stone became a trophy of war. The Treaty of Alexandria officially transferred ownership to the British, who shipped it to England in 1802. It has remained in the British Museum ever since, despite ongoing calls for its repatriation to Egypt. The process of deciphering the stone's hieroglyphs is another area where the popular narrative simplifies a complex story. While Jean-François Champollion is often credited as the sole decoder, the breakthrough was actually the culmination of work by multiple scholars, including Thomas Young of England, Antoine Isaac Sylvestre de Sacy, and Johann David Åkerblad. Young made crucial early progress, identifying the phonetic values for many demotic signs, and determining that hieroglyphs weren't purely pictorial. Champollion, building on this work, and using his knowledge of Coptic, the descendant of ancient Egyptian language, made the final breakthrough in 1822, a full 23 years after the stone's discovery. The decipherment revealed that Egyptian hieroglyphs were a sophisticated writing system, combining pictograms, ideograms, and phonetic elements. This demolished the prevailing Western view that Egyptian writing was primitive and purely symbolic, forcing a re-evaluation of ancient Egyptian civilization as highly advanced. What's particularly fascinating is how the hieroglyphic script itself reflects the sophisticated cultural understanding of the priests who created it. The Egyptian word for the demotic script translates roughly to document writing or letter writing, while hieroglyphics were called sacred writings or the words of the gods. When referring to Greek writing, however, they used a completely different term that translates to letters, recognizing the fundamentally different alphabetic nature of Greek script. The Rosetta Stone also contains a remarkable physical clue that's rarely discussed. The stone we see today is damaged, with the top portion broken off. But research on parallel texts has revealed that the complete stela would have been approximately 2 meters tall with a rounded top. This missing section would have contained iconic Egyptian imagery, likely a scene showing Ptolemy V smiting an enemy, probably referencing his reconquest of the city of Lycopolis mentioned in the text. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of the Rosetta Stone story is its modern symbolism. For European powers, it became an emblem of colonial achievement, the West rescuing and decoding a lost civilization. For Egyptians, it represents cultural heritage removed during colonial occupation. The stone's continued presence in the British Museum remains contentious, with calls for its return growing louder in recent decades. During World War I, the stone was hidden in underground railway tunnels in London to protect it from bombing, a testament to its perceived value to British cultural identity. Even today, the term Rosetta Stone has entered our language as a metaphor for anything that provides crucial understanding of a complex system. So, what is the real secret of the Rosetta Stone? It's that this celebrated artifact was never intended to be a key to lost knowledge. It was a mass-produced political document, created to reinforce the authority of foreign rulers over a restless population. Its transformation into a symbol of archaeological triumph obscures its original purpose, as a tool of power and propaganda. The Rosetta Stone doesn't just tell us how to read hieroglyphs, it reveals how ruling classes throughout history have used monumental inscriptions to shape narratives and legitimize authority. And in a final irony, the stone itself continues to be part of ongoing disputes about who has the right to possess and interpret cultural heritage. As we marvel at the stone's contribution to our understanding of ancient Egypt, we should also recognize that its journey from propaganda tool to museum centerpiece is a story of power, colonialism, and the politics of who gets to tell history's story. The real secret of the Rosetta Stone isn't just in its ancient inscriptions, but in what its modern journey tells us about ourselves. Perhaps the most profound lesson of the Rosetta Stone is how knowledge itself becomes a battleground between cultures. The priests who created it used their exclusive understanding of hieroglyphs as a source of power. The European scholars who deciphered it gained prestige and authority from their exclusive understanding. And today, The institutions that house such artifacts gain cultural capital from their role as gatekeepers of historical knowledge.